Service! Hey everyone, welcome to Chef Sense. I'm your host, Chef Massey. I'd like to say happy holidays. I hope that you have a lot of memories and fun and safe travel. I just wanted to share with you, we're going to go into this episode, which is dealing with mushroom foraging. Again, I do a variety of different foraging myself, and I can firmly say that please make sure that, if this is something new for you, that you're reaching out to a local expert, that you gain your knowledge through them. There are books out there, but having the two tools together are very important and also a very safe approach to this. So it is a lot of fun. I look at foraging kind of like a Mother Nature's treasure hunt. It's cool. I mean, I think as a chef, when, I can go out and I can get fiddleheads or ramps or watercress or a variety of these different things, and obviously mushrooms, as we'll get into this episode, it is very powerful. I wish that everybody would do it. It's great exercise. It's great reconnecting, getting yourself out into nature, obviously in safe environments and with expert support, so you get a foundation of really what to look for, because that's very important. The other thing I want to say too, I have used mushrooms medicinally. They have helped me, but that's my opinion. John has his opinion, as you'll hear too. Please seek medical guidance if this is something that you are curious about starting that process. We are not doctors, but we are doing what we love to do, and we're feeding off of it. So enjoy the episode, be safe, and away we go. All right, everyone. In the studio today, we have John Wheeler, our awesome mushroom expert here in the Berkshires. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Do you want to go into, just your background? I mean, how long have you been in the Berkshires, actually?
I grew up across from the old Egremont Country Club. And,
okay.
So I grew up here, and I lived here until I went off to Boston when I was 18 for a year in school and came back. And then it was 74, and I joined the service because there were no jobs around here. And then I got out of the Navy, and I moved to Boston for 3 years. And then my friend called me up from California, and I went to California for 7 years. And I came back, and I gave a really obnoxious drunk a ride home from the bar to get him out of the hair of the bartender one day. Wow. And he called me the next day and said, "I need a ride, man. The honeys are out." I said, "What the hell are honeys?" He said, "Really good mushrooms, man. My uncle said they're all over the mountain." I said, "Sure, I like walking in the woods. I'll go out and have a little bit of fun in the woods, see what's going on." And we picked up another guy. Both of them were second-generation Italian. And we picked honey mushrooms, and Steve picked up something that's called bear's head tooth. And we went back over to this other guy, Dan's house, and cooked up some mushrooms. And I said to myself, why would anybody buy a store-bought mushroom when you get these flavors from the wild?
Unbelievable.
So I went out and I got myself an Audubon book, because I asked this guy, I said, "So what's this mushroom?" He says, "I don't know. We don't eat that." "What's this mushroom?" "I don't know. We don't eat that one." So we're walking through the woods, and he knows, he says, "I know about 5, 6, 7 mushrooms." So we're looking at these honey mushrooms, and then I didn't know at the time the aborted entoloma, which is actually an aborted honey mushroom, attacked by the abortive entoloma. So there was an abortive entoloma there. He didn't know what it was. He didn't know about the shrimp of the woods, right, the aborted entoloma, but he did know the honeys. And he picked a bag of little teeny ones, and he had like a little McDonald's bag, and my friend Dan and I each had a grocery bag, and we filled ours. He filled his little bag. I said, "What's that for?" He says, "Oh, that's for my antipasto." So he and his family had been making sausage and preserving foods, every year since, he was a kid. So his introduction to mushrooms was strictly edible. I personally am fascinated by all of them. I want to know every mushroom there is out there.
Yeah, you sure do. I mean, you know so much. It's just unbelievable.
I think I found about 1,100 species in the Berkshires. With a kind of mental life list. No actual tallying them, but I look through books and I say, "Oh, I found that one. I found that one. I know where that one was. I can tell you where that one was. I can tell you exactly what time of the year it was." The hunter-gatherer part of the brain is very strong.
Oh, I know that. I see you.
So I can say, "Oh, I drove by this house 15 years ago and bought something at a tag sale," and I can tell you exactly what I bought there. That's that hunter-gatherer part of the brain. It's very, very primal and very strong. And a lot of things related to that, one of the things I always tell people when they go mushrooming is smell the mushroom. Your olfactory memory is one of the strongest parts of your memory process. So, you smell a mushroom and it smells like an apricot.
Yeah.
And you say, oh, it's a chanterelle. And
If
it looks like a chanterelle and it doesn't smell like apricot, throw it away. It's not going to be it because they are very distinctive in their odor.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
It's unbelievable, though, really, as a chef, getting the store-bought or your purveyor bringing in mushrooms that a produce company carries versus going out and harvesting something and featuring it on your menu. I mean, it's night and day, the flavor. It's so intense, so beautiful. What is your favorite mushroom? Do you have any? I mean,
I would imagine any of the hericiums, which are like lion's mane, bear's head tooth, comb tooth. That's crab meat. I mean, essentially the texture and flavor are of crab meat. You can fool people with make a crab cake with it and never put a piece of fish in it. And,
wow.
And of course, fish allergies wouldn't have issues with that.
Right.
Which is fantastic.
Right. And that's amazing because I actually have never thought of doing that. So, I got to write that down.
Very popular thing to do with them.
Okay.
Another thing is like hen of the woods, one of the greatest meaty mushrooms there are. There's so many ways of pairing that. I have that with breakfast, lunch, dinner. Yeah. I know people who make mushroom jerky with it. Really works out.
Oh, yum.
I love grilling it.
Yeah.
Just slap it around in a little Italian dressing and throw it on the grill. It's fantastic.
Okay.
But I had it, and we had a party the other night, and it was oyster mushrooms and hen of the woods in lasagna. It was just out of this world.
Yeah, and I'm sure you could do a pretty awesome duxelle with that too, just cooking it down. And
and of course there's black trumpets too.
Oh yeah,
black trumpets are a very, very strong aromatic mushroom in the chanterelle sort of family.
Right.
And it doesn't take much to do a lot with it. And if you only find a few of them, then pop 3 in a pint of vodka for 3 or 4 days, and then sip it like vodka.
I remember that.
Cognac.
I was hoping you would have brought that. We could have celebrated your birthday too today.
Don't have it.
And happy birthday, by the way. It's John's birthday today, everyone. So, all right. And so your group is the Berkshire Mycological Society, right?
Right.
And it has its Facebook page. Do you want to talk about that? I know you do your walks. I mean, all your passion.
Well, we started the club in 2000. I came back from LA in 88. And after 8 years of my wife crying every time I tried a new mushroom, she made me take a class. And I took a class with this fellow from New Mexico who had been growing oyster mushrooms for all the restaurants in the Taos area for 20 years. And we went up to Benedict Pond, and as we got there, there was a family of probably 10 Russians from the Springfield area who came out of the woods with bags full of mushrooms.
Wow.
Said, you got to get up early to beat us. So we went after that. There weren't many mushrooms left, and I brought them to a place where we picked hen of the woods, chicken of the woods, and probably 30 or 40 other species of mushrooms on the way in. Not all edible, just a few good edibles, though. And he said, next year we do a class, you're taking half of the class one way, I'll go the other way, because I really knew my mushrooms. He was quite impressed with my knowledge, having taught only myself. He said, you must be the local expert. I said, not unless you could teach everything yourself from books, because none of the local people who were brought up in their family traditions would tell you anything about mushrooms, habitat, locations, anything. And they really didn't know too much other than those few that were used in their family.
Right.
So it was a limited base of information for me until I came and met Jonathan Caldwell. And then 2 years later, we started a club, one with a professor from Simon's Rock, and one a teacher from Mount Everett High School, myself, and Jonathan from New Mexico. So he wasn't around much. I helped teach over at Simon's Rock. I was an assistant professor or lab assistant or something like that. I would take the kids out for walks, and the fellow there, Don Roeder, had contracted toxoplasmosis in South America on his sabbatical, so he had a hard time walking, and he'd been hit by a car after that when he was recovering, and so he didn't do as much walking as I did. So I took the kids out for the walks in the woods, and I talked about habitat, told them to smell the mushrooms. I told them, this is, you got to wait 2 weeks after a really good rain for a good mycorrhizal flush. You can find saprobic fungi pretty much any time there's enough moisture in the dead wood around you and in the grass and in the leaf litter and stuff like that. But the mycorrhizal mushrooms like the porcinis and the chanterelles and the ones that feed and water the trees, they take about 2 weeks after a really good rain for a flush.
Wow.
Almost 14 days to the day.
Yeah.
But usually, 12 to 15 days, you should see a lot of mushrooms coming out after a really great rain.
Well, and getting your mushrooms throughout the season, I mean, can you, for people that are listening that may not, first of all, obviously consult always an expert and get your knowledge foundation through that. But when you do this, what sort of range do you look for? I know they come up, all year round but not all year round, but you know what I mean. Do you want to talk about the range of mushrooms possibly?
Okay, well, you have your spring mushrooms, you have chanterelle, you have any of the saprobic mushrooms pretty much can come out in the spring. Like I found chicken of the woods in the spring, and I found Hericium, the lion's mane or bear's tooth in the spring, very, very small and very, very pink, but sometimes you do find them in the spring. But the morels and a lot of just saprobic fungi come out in the springtime. Until you get into June, mid-June, you start seeing russellas and amanitas coming out, which are your mycorrhizal mushrooms, are the ones that water and feed the trees in exchange for the sugars.
Okay.
And then you get into July and you start seeing black trumpets and you can get a nice June flush of porcinis, but in the summertime, a big problem of hunting mushrooms in the summertime is that the bugs are very prolific. The mushroom gnats will lay their maggots on the fruiting body while they're still underground because they can smell them. And then by the time your porcini gets to be 2 or 3 inches tall, you go to grab it and the stem collapses under the weight of your fingers because it's completely eaten out on the inside.
Okay.
So a lot of the old-time mushroomers won't even start mushrooming until late September because that's when the bugs stop laying eggs when you get cool evenings. Okay. So the mushrooms are really smart. They won't even start to fruit until they have a chance to, come to full fruition and be able to produce their spores. Right. But there are a lot of things that eat mushrooms. I mean, every time you go out and find a really good edible mushroom, chances are it's going to have a lot of slug bites on top. Or if you're unlucky enough, you happen to go out and you know there's going to be stuff there, and all the mushrooms are gone because the squirrels and the chipmunks will grab them and take them and dry them.
Okay.
My friend from New Mexico told me that he had a squirrel hunting friend who shot a squirrel one time. It didn't come down from the tree, and he climbed up the tree to get the squirrel. He said all of the branches were lined with mushrooms drying in the New Mexico sun.
No kidding! Yeah. Wow.
So they will store their mushrooms, and but a lot of people, the majority of the great mushrooms start in the fall.
Okay.
And it's partially because you can actually get them. But I found oyster mushrooms in January, and those January thaws that we get where you get a rainstorm, 3 days of 50-degree weather. Perfect flush of oyster mushrooms. I go driving by the stump, actually right next to where I live now, when I was going to work, and I got up in the morning and I'm driving along and I said, "There's oyster mushrooms. I didn't see them yesterday or the day before." Yeah. And I went back on the way home, and it was like 25 degrees out. I just broke them off and threw them in my freezer. Yeah. Took them out one at a time.
I mean, and it's like right out there. I mean, and you can just get so inspired by all that. When you do your walks, how many times a year do you go for a walk, and what's the time range for you?
I try to go every Sunday at 10 o'clock.
At 10 o'clock?
If it's going to be really bad on Sundays, I'll do a walk on Saturdays if I can. Yeah. But Sunday at 10 o'clock is a nice time to go out. Okay. It's like church in the woods without a lot of hypocrites.
Right.
No tithing.
Yeah, that's always nice. Yeah. And so what time of the season?
The last weekend of April.
Okay.
For morel season. And I go right through till November.
Okay.
I have a couple of weekends where I go away to the Northeastern Mycological Federation foray. I go to the Connecticut Westchester Club, has a walk every year, and NAMA has a North American Mycological Association has a walk every year, a weekend foray. So I'm usually gone for 3 weekends during the year.
Wow. Hey, everyone. I just want to take a minute to share with you. The sponsor today is BetterHelp. BetterHelp is an online therapy service. They have 30,000 licensed therapists in their network. It's really amazing. And I have enjoyed taking advantage of this opportunity with them myself because, oftentimes the intensity in the kitchen, the challenges in life, I have put myself on the back burner. And, working with BetterHelp, it has supported me in continuing in my own self-work, but also putting me back front and center in the game of being an effective leader, partner, and all of the above. So take that questionnaire. Once you do that, you go through that system and they filter those therapists that are fit for your specific needs. They get back to you in most cases within 48 hours or less. You can book those therapy sessions at your leisure that fit your schedule, which is truly amazing. I can say as a chef and, on the go and parent, it makes it very convenient. You could do those via the video chat, the instant message. Go to betterhelp.com/Chef Massey and you get the 10% off first month when you do that. And in that link, the questionnaire is there for you. So join me on sliding to the front burner because we deserve it. Back to the episode. What do you think of the benefits of, eating mushrooms?
Well, besides all of the regular medicinal qualities that a lot of mushrooms have, they also have a lot of micronutrients that you can't get other places.
Okay.
It's really, really good for your system. And so many mushrooms are immune boosters. Hen of the Woods,
Right.
of course, is like right up there. This guy, Greg Marley, up in Maine, wrote a book on mushroom medicines, and he said a woman in his town had 6 months to live with a brain tumor, and he brought her a bushel basket of Hen of the Woods and said eat it every day, every way, and 6 months later, her brain tumor was gone, no sign of it at all. So that's one of the anti-carcinogenic mushrooms.
Right.
We used to have a B&B, and I was serving Hen of the Woods for breakfast, and this woman says, I take that in a pill form to keep cancer away. She'd had breast cancer. She was taking a pill with shiitake, maitake, which is Hen of the Woods, and turkey tail, which are all highly medicinal mushrooms. And of course, shiitake you can go buy in a store or grow your own, and it's good for you. It's a little tough. So I personally like mushrooms that are less
Right.
tough, but that's okay. I mean, you cook them right, they're just fine.
Yeah. What do you think of like Paul Stamets?
Paul Stamets is amazing what
Yeah.
he's gone into.
He's really
done a lot of research and worked a lot on making things work to make the world a better place.
Right. I get his host defense. What is that? The host defense mushroom. He has some of those in obviously the pill form.
My wife takes the Hericium, the brain one.
Yeah.
Because we'd been in a car accident and she had a pretty bad concussion, and so it helps. Hericium, the lion's mane extracts and stuff like that are good for anti-carcinogenic, anti-tumor, as well as nerve repair and dementia.
Oh, interesting.
As long as if you have a dementia, it can really improve your memory for quite a bit, and possibly Hericium. But apparently, if you don't continue to use it, that benefit goes away. So it's there for you if you need it.
Which is great. Wow. Okay.
And chaga is another medicinal mushroom. You can't eat it, but you make a tea from it. It's the highest antioxidant in nature. If you go to Russia and you get a cold or cancer or anything like that, you get chaga tea. That's the cure-all.
Yeah, yeah. Do you see someday the government allowing more of that usage, or what do you think of
They are working on it now. There's a lot more research going on.
What do you think about microdosing? That seems to be kind of a hot topic right now.
I'm not really too aware of it. I did my share of psilocybin when I was younger.
Yeah.
Haven't done anything to hallucinate on it for many, many years.
Right.
But, it's a really pleasant thing. It gets you closer to nature.
Yeah, nice. Well, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. When you do your walks, you go for what? Maybe an
hour and 45 minutes.
45 minutes?
I try to go out at 10, quarter after 10, and get back by noon.
Okay.
And then I spread out the mushrooms on the table according to genus. I count them and photograph them and try to, if anybody has any questions, I answer anything I can. And if anybody wants anything to take to eat, they take them home as long as I think that they're going to be okay. I wouldn't let anybody take anything that isn't.
Sure.
There are mushrooms that can have detrimental effects with your meds. I know that people who have diabetes have to watch out for eating large amounts of chicken of the woods because it can lower your blood sugar precipitously.
Okay.
I was told by Gary Linkoff that he was doing a talk one time at one of the forays, and he said something about Hen of the Woods can interfere with your SSRIs.
Okay.
And I know that people who do have antidepressants, if they are going to take some kind of a hallucinogen, it usually doesn't work as well as people who don't. I had a friend who was a teacher, and he would be on antidepressants all through the school year, and he wouldn't do any psilocybin. And then once the school year was off, he'd get off the antidepressants, and he would have an enjoyable summer.
Oh, he sounds like it. Nice. Wow.
Fun for the young at heart.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when you're done with your walk, you obviously cook something out of that, what you've picked?
Oh, and when I do a private class, I generally start out with a mushroom quiche while I do a PowerPoint, and then we do an hour and a half walk, and we come back and we nosh on a few of the species that we find, usually 3 at the max. And it's a 3.5 hour thing that way. But my regular walks with the club is just an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Come back, count, photograph, send people on their way.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. First of all, I wanted to also give you, some appreciation too, because I think it's important, here in the Berkshires in our community. And for those of you that are out there that are curious about mushroom foraging, you can research and take a look at individuals in your area and just kind of follow up with them and maybe get the process started for yourself. John, you being in this area, not just as a community member, but coming from me as a chef, I want to thank you too for giving me the opportunity to dig further into my passion, and use you as a knowledge resource to always continue to build. When I go out, I take a look at, the mushrooms that I know well, and I try to pick one every year. And if I don't know, I give you a call, and I appreciate you always being there because it is special to have you here. So is there any mushroom that you're like, man, I just haven't found that one yet? I mean, I don't think that's possible, is it?
I found lion's mane, a true lion's mane, only once here in the Berkshires. The bear's tooth is more prevalent on beech trees and different trees. I found, I can't remember, it was actually when I found the lion's mane, it was the first year I was mushrooming, so I really didn't know what it was, but I do remember it was one solid clump. The bear's tooth, which has kind of shelves and has teeth that come down, that's what I normally find on beech trees. 99% of them are on beech trees. I have found them on shagbark hickory a couple of times on birch trees, once on an ash and once on an oak. But for the most part, 99.9% of the time, it's on dead beech. And they are just the most amazing mushrooms.
No.
I'm just always thrilled when I do find a new mushroom.
Yeah.
It's like, I know. Most of the edible mushrooms around here I have found.
What do you think of like that? Is it the Agaricon?
That's the West Coast thing.
That's up in the Pacific Northwest, right. And that's it's like a chubby monster shelf
mushroom.
Yeah. There's a lot of benefits to that one.
Yeah, a lot of the polypores have medicinal benefit. A lot of them are very bitter, so Chinese and Asiatic people would say, "Oh, if it's bitter, that means it's got to be good." So
okay.
When I have my reishi tea in the morning, it's a bit bitter, but I had it one time. I usually find it on hemlock in this area.
Okay.
The traditional reishi is growing on oak from the Asiatic countries. I think it's on oak.
Yeah.
But I found it on a year when I couldn't find any. One year we had a major blowout. It was a fantastic year. The year after that, there were no reishi on any of the hemlocks, but I found one on a birch tree, and I made tea from that, and there was no bitterness whatsoever.
Oh, interesting.
And it probably had a higher medicinal quality because of being on birch. As you know, with chaga, it's concentrated betulin, which is a highly medicinal thing that birch trees put out.
Okay.
So it was probably better. And it definitely didn't have any bitterness to it, which I was amazed at. So I would imagine you could probably grow your own reishi on hardwoods, but I like harvesting. I'm a person who loves to go out in the woods and find what's there.
Yep.
I did a mushroom inoculation class this spring. I got oak logs and maple logs and put together some shiitake, oyster, and hericium logs. We plugged them and sealed them up with wax. And this is the first time I've ever tried to grow mushrooms since I started in 1988.
Wow.
Really never had an interest because there's always so many mushrooms that I can get. I have a refrigerator and a freezer full of frozen mushrooms that I par cook and put in Ziploc bags so I can pick out of the fridge anytime I want to.
Yeah.
So it's not like I have to go out and buy mushrooms or grow mushrooms.
Right.
But right now, there's oyster mushrooms growing in my backyard for the first time ever that I've planted.
And that's pretty awesome. I saw that on your post.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Can't wait for next year for the hericium. I hope they come out.
Yeah. Wow. So when it comes to preparation of mushrooms, it's always, I mean, obviously you always cook the wild mushrooms, correct? I mean, any advice on all that? That's it?
I just pick them. And if you're going to pick for the table, you generally want to clean as much as you can before you put it in your basket.
Right.
Because you don't want to put more dirt on top of your edible mushrooms.
Yeah.
I usually keep my edibles separate from my non-edible mushrooms.
Right.
So that way we're not even considering that.
Right.
But when I go out mushrooming with my club, I just generally pile everything in my basket.
Yeah.
I have egg crates in there to try to keep them separate for a while.
Yeah.
But if you get into August, instead of being like 15 or 20 species like you get in the springtime, you're talking 60 to 150 species. And I only have space in my little egg crates for 60. So
right.
And a lot of mushrooms are way too big to fit in an egg crate. But the reason why I do the egg crate is to keep them separate. I used to do it in paper. I could fit two 30-pack paper egg crates in my basket. But when you find tiny mushrooms, they will desiccate if they're touching paper. So I had to go to plastic. So
okay, interesting.
And it's easier to clean out and stuff.
Yeah. Well, like for morels, I mean, I always soak mine and just kind of let the critters, kind of
I generally try to get them when they're young, pre-critter.
Okay. There you go. Okay.
And I cut open every morel to make sure there's not a slug inside.
And because they can get up inside. Okay. And I know even with like black trumpets, they can tend to. Those are kind of challenging and can
once
get
in a while,
gritty.
I just split them down the middle and get the pine needle or the millipede out.
Right. A little extra protein, Jeez. Yeah. Well, and can you kind of describe, I mean, I know we talked about it earlier about a lobster mushroom, but I find that one so fascinating just because of its, its evolution and how it grows. Can you kind of describe all that?
Right. So sometimes if you're walking around the woods, you'll see this really bright orange-red mushroom on the ground and it looks really deformed. But it used to be, in our area, something called a Russula brevipies. Brevipies means short foot. And sometimes when you pick them and they have a little blue ring around right below the gills, I think that's a variation of the same mushroom. But if those mushrooms get rained on, then the secondary fungus called the Hypomyces lactifluorone will attack it and turn this mediocre white mushroom into a delicious, chunky, meaty, nutty textured mushroom that has actual fish flavor and smell to it.
Yeah, I love it.
And some people say that's not real. It's all in your imagination. But I think that it definitely smells fishy.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
And there's a little bit of a fish flavor. And my friend, when I first started hanging out with him, he said, if you get more mushroom than you get dirt, you're doing pretty well because they come up out of pine duff. They're a pine tree associate. So they're usually the whole center of the mushroom is filled with duff and dirt. And he says if you scrape off the pink, the red, then you end up losing all that flavor.
Interesting.
You'll still have the nuttiness because the mushroom itself had been transformed from being kind of a crumbly mushroom to a really solid mushroom because of the textural intricacies of the hypomyces.
Wow.
But I don't know. It's just an interesting mushroom. I don't find it very often.
Yeah, I get excited when the two ones that I can get every mid-September.
I was up in Vermont 2 years ago, I think, or maybe it was last year, for a Myco Blitz with this fellow. And right near the place where we were staying, we went out across the way, and I probably could have picked 15 or 20 pounds.
Wow.
It was just everywhere.
Oh, my gosh. Amazing. What a treasure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I said, we should go to a restaurant and hand them to him. But I just handed them to one of the people who were scientists.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Well, you have my cell phone number, though. So. Which you do, which I'm so grateful that we're connected like that. Another one I found that blew my mind that you got a hold of was the matsutake. And I used that when you brought it in. I shaved it on ramen bowls. But I was blown away that you could get those here because, I mean, it is different from the Japanese version to ours. But, I mean, what's up? That's so crazy that you got them here.
Right. Well, apparently they're all over the place when you get up into Maine and New Hampshire, up in the mountains. What you want to do is you want to go near a nice, quickly moving stream with a lot of ground granite in it, because when you pick a matsutake and you dig out the base of it, you'll find that at the very tip of it will have this gray
ash
sand looking, and it's called potash soil or pod soil or something like that, and it is actually that ground granite.
Oh, no kidding!
And it's just attaches to the very base of that
Yeah.
mushroom.
Okay. Yeah, those I love
And they
those.
can get very deep too. I found one that was probably about 8 inches down into the duff.
No kidding.
Hmm.
Wow. Okay.
And the stems are, fairly flavorful as well as the
Yeah.
caps.
Okay. No, that's great. All right.
But they're amazing because they're so dense that when you cut through them with a knife, it squeaks.
Oh yeah, I love that. No, it's like I put it right on the mandolin and just do super thin on it, and it's cut them in half and then shave them that way because it just the way they kind of just sit on a broth like that, it's just beautiful. So
Yeah, my friend Dai told me that in Japan it'll take one. I mean, I've heard about having a dinner engagement and somebody bringing a $50-$60 presentation box with one mushroom inside. And he says what they would do is they thin slice them and put them between layers of tinfoil and put them in the freezer, and they take them out one slice at a time and put it on top of their miso soup.
Okay, there we go. No, that's a great idea. I didn't even think about that either. So just a wealth of knowledge over there.
Yeah, so many mushrooms lend themselves to different types of preservation. Some mushrooms you can just freeze fresh and raw. Some of them I prefer taking a lot of mushrooms. Lots of times I get hen of the woods or honey mushrooms, and I will get a whole big batch of them. And for the honeys, I will boil them and then pour off the water because my wife will get a gastric upset.
Yeah, some people can.
So I do that, but I always like to take my mushrooms and just kind of cook them down in their own juices so they're not crispy and chunky and full of air.
Yeah,
almost out of juice. And then I'll Ziploc them in little meal-sized bags, throw them in the freezer, and then I can just pop them out anytime. Yeah. And I don't do anything to them. I just cook them in their own water because that way they don't have any olive oil or butter in there. I heard that maybe those things don't freeze well.
Oh, okay.
I think it's olive oil doesn't freeze well.
I could see that. Oh, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, and that, and I get kind of leery of deflecting the taste of that mushroom too because, like you said, I mean, some of these mushrooms they have their own distinct flavor profile. I think it's kind of like wines, you get into that and you can really taste how they are and then the environment that they're in. So.
And I've been told it's matsutake you should never do with butter. You do it with a peanut oil or sesame oil or something like that, and it'll be a much better flavor and it lends itself to that spicy, amazing odor that comes with it.
Yeah. And another thing of advice, though, if people are trying wild forage mushrooms for the first time,
eat a small amount.
Because
you might have allergic reactions. I know people who are allergic to morels. I know my friend who grew oyster mushrooms for 20 years. He can't be around it because he starts to break out. He's very sensitive to the spores. And I know somebody who recently talked to me about getting a friend. He gave some friend, a friend found some hen of the woods, and he got sick from it. He got violently ill from it. Now, I know another person who did the same thing. She'd been eating for years. She got sick. She tried some from a different batch to make sure it wasn't just something from that batch, and she got sick. So she developed an allergy to it.
Well,
you can't cook. You should never eat too many of one kind of mushroom anyway. I know somebody who ate like a half a pound of black trumpets in one sitting.
Man.
He was sick for 3 days.
Yeah, that would be...
there's so many strong and amazing enzymes in mushrooms that can tear apart wood, grass, animals, everything under the sun. And if you don't cook them well, or there's a lot of these enzymes that are still intact, but a lot of enzymes get destroyed in the cooking process. That's why you can eat a blusher, which is very uncommon to eat in the United States, but in Europe, people eat Amanita rubescens all the time. But you have to cook it. My friend John Plischke said he told a friend that you could eat these because they're good edibles, and the guy ate some raw. He was sick for 3 days.
Wow.
And that's because there's enzymes in amanitas that will really, really attack your system.
Yeah. Well, and morels, is that true? That you cannot eat fresh morels because they are toxic? Raw. Okay. You got to cook them. Okay.
There are a few mushrooms you can eat raw. Amanita caesarea, which is our version here is Jacksonii, which is a yellow, it was a red amanita with yellow gills, and it comes out of a cup. People in Europe go to restaurants in Italy and they'll say, "Would you like ovolo on your salad?" And they'll shave raw Amanita caesarea onto your salad, so you can eat that mushroom raw. I wouldn't. I've nibbled it and tasted it raw, and it has a bit of a sulfury flavor to it in our version. It's not the same exact version as it is in Europe.
Okay.
But the Caesarea in Europe, I mean, during Caesar's time, if you were a peasant, you got caught eating a Caesar's amanita, they would kill you. That was reserved for the royal court.
Wow. Wow. Very nice. Somebody was brainstorming on that one. There's some pre-setup on that. Well, all right. I know I go back to your walking, lectures that you do. Now, space is limited on that. Like, you really like to control, because you're a popular guy. You know that?
When I do my classes, I definitely try to limit it to 10 people. First of all, because I'm going to be cooking quiche for 10 people.
Yeah.
Which is, cutting into my supplies.
Yeah. Right.
But then I have 10 people walking around trampling the ground. And
right, I know
10
that.
people saying, can you eat this? Can you eat this? And
I
don't really like that so much. But I like it's going off of the experience.
Sure.
Pick a bunch of mushrooms and try to explain to people what they are.
Yeah.
And then we come back and we nosh on a couple of the mushrooms that we find that I know are good, safe edibles.
Yeah.
But on my mushroom club walks, I think we've had probably as many as 20 people during certain parts of the season.
Wow. Okay.
And that's doable. But the bigger the crowd, the longer the stretch of the people is, the less people get to see because the people in front are picking most of the mushrooms. And it's really nice that we have a small club. I mean, it could be bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Berkshire Mycological Society on Facebook is the best.
The only way to find out about the walks is to go on Facebook. Unfortunately, I don't do Instagram. I'm stuck in the old time, and I put it out to post at 8:30 in the morning because my son was working at 20 Railroad, and the chef asked one of the foragers, "Where do you get your ideas to go get mushrooms?" He said, "I checked the Berkshire Mycological Society webpage, and I see where they're going to go. I'll go there the day before."
Yeah, let's not do that.
So I just feel badly that somebody came on a couple of our walks and found out where all our good stuff was, and then poached our patches.
Yeah, it's not good. So I'm sorry to hear that. And
so I give you an hour and a half to get there. If you make it, good for you.
Yeah. Right. Nice. Well, all right. Again, thank you for your time, John. Happy birthday.
Well,
everybody that's listening. You've got a great expert here in this area. Reach out to your area and see who you can find. Make sure that you can kind of investigate their knowledge and get to know them as well. So, Jackson, thank you for your studio. Oh, one more thing from John.
One more thing. If you do go on Facebook, there are a lot of different clubs in the Northeast. And I monitor a lot of different clubs because I go to a lot of the different clubs. But I can tell when things are coming up from the north or coming down from the south by checking other clubs' posts. Because in the springtime, the morels are happening in New Jersey and in the Hudson Valley a week or two before we get it here in the Berkshires.
Okay.
And the same thing coming down from the north. The hen of the wood starts hitting the northern areas and coming down south. So you can kind of monitor what's going on throughout the Northeast area by looking at other mushroom clubs.
Okay. Very good. All right. Well, thanks again, John. Thank you, Jackson. Yeah. All right, everyone. That is a wrap. You can check us out if you like that. Subscribe. Also, the Instagram, Chef Massey. Let's keep it simple. ChefMassey.com. Have a good one. Bye for now.